Hello, welcome to a new video. We have something to discuss today. Everything I know about nature journaling. So I've discussed this topic briefly with little bits sprinkled here and there in previous videos, particularly in my A Year in the Nature Journal videos. But I wanted to make it easier for anyone who is looking for this particular information to find it. I want this video to be as comprehensive as possible, and because of that I've written down everything I know about nature journaling. It's at least everything I can remember at the time I wrote my notes. We may be chatting a while, so feel free to put me on in the background and get on with other things. And if I mention something in the video you want to know more about, just let me know in the comments. So if you're new here, my name is Katie and I nature journal. I've been nature journaling for 2 full years now, so this is my 3rd year. Obviously, I started nature journaling because of my love for nature, but I have found that through nature journaling, my love for nature and being outside has grown. A few months into my nature journaling endeavor, I began taking classes with a couple of different programs, and I'm now on my way to becoming a certified naturalist. Last year, I developed a program with a local park teaching nature journaling classes. So I did that for a while, and it was a fun experience. And teaching nature journaling classes is my long-term career goal. So that's just a little about me and my relationship with nature journaling and nature. So if you feel like you want to start a nature journal and you don't know how, that could be for a number of reasons. Maybe you live in the city and you don't have access to natural space. Maybe the natural space you have access to isn't very biodiverse. Or maybe you're like me and you've thought about nature journaling for a few years now and you're scared to start because you're a perfectionist and you're worried you're gonna mess up. I want you to remember that a nature journal doesn't have to look any specific way. The main goal with nature journaling is that you're observing your observation. Wait, what? The main goal with nature journaling is that you are recording your observations and recording them in a way that feels like it represents you. Because the nature journal holds within it your passions, the things you're interested in, the things you notice, the things you enjoy. Those are all special things and they're going to vary between each individual. I personally feel like it's a waste of time to focus on subjects that you don't feel strongly connected to or interested in. Your already existing passions and interests should guide your nature journaling practice. And those interests will grow and change over time. So if you live in a place where you feel you have no access to natural space, you can still nature journal. Ask yourself a few questions. Are there trees nearby? Is there a sidewalk? There's a whole entire ecosystem that thrives in and around sidewalks and roads. In fact, the city itself is an ecosystem. And species and specimens can be found there that are less prevalent or can't be found anywhere else. You can go to public parks. You can take a walk down the road. You can stay at home and sit by the window. That's a method I've used many times. If you can't leave the house or you don't want to because of the weather or any other reason, just sit by the window. A great place to start nature journaling any time of year is with bird watching. So if you have the space, you can set up a bird feeder or a bird bath in view from your window and sit and watch, and they will come. The most important first step in nature journaling is just that you do it. So when you start out, you're going to want to use methods and materials that you already feel comfortable with. Sometimes that means your nature journal will have drawings or paintings, or maybe you don't feel ready to illustrate in your nature journal yet, so you choose to make written entries only. Or maybe you like neither of those options and you'd rather have a photographic journal or a pressed specimens journal. Ask yourself what you enjoy. What method of self-expression feels right to you in this moment every time you open your nature journal? What materials do you need? The basics are some sort of paper, something to write on. So that can be loose sheets of printer paper that you've stapled together, or maybe an old sketchbook that you've been too scared to open. Next, you need something to write or draw with. So even if you choose not to draw in your nature journal, I would like to strongly encourage you to write in it. When nature journaling, some information is important if you want your journal to be scientifically accurate. There's a method called the Grinnell's method, so you can look more into that if you're interested, but basically with the Grinnell's method, there's specific information that you have to write in your entries. So the time of day, the date, the weather, and you can write those specifics in even if you have a photography journal and it's the only writing you're planning on including, because you want to remember where you went and what you were doing, even if just for yourself, so you can look back on it. So make sure you have a writing tool you feel comfortable with. That can be a pencil, a pen, a marker, a colored pencil. I like to use a dip pen and ink. Next, you'll need mark making tools if you do choose to make illustrations in your journal. You can use colored pencils, markers, paints. I exclusively use watercolor paints. I like the way it looks, I like how fast it dries, especially when working outside, and all of my idol nature journalists have always used watercolors. I want to emphasize the importance of observation. There's a quote by one of my favorite nature journalists, Janet Marsh. She wrote in her nature journal, "More is to be learned by quietly watching and listening to bird, insect, or animal for a few hours than anything the textbook can offer." So in this quote, Janet mentions two methods of observation. So watching, or seeing, is the first and most used method of observation. One way to open your observational eyes is to ask yourself two questions. What if I had never seen this before? And what if I knew I would never see it again? Imagine how carefully we might make observations if we're focused on taking in the moment as fully as possible. As mundane as everyday objects and occurrences may seem, each moment has never happened, and it will never happen again. Imagine observing a robin. So these are fairly common birds, whether we're talking about American robins or European robins. I can almost guarantee that most of you have seen a robin. So we may have seen robins before, but we never observed this particular robin on this particular day. Any natural occurrence that happens is the first and only time it will happen on that particular day, or ever. Every occurrence is novel and exciting, even the ones that at first may seem a little boring, like spotting a robin. Listening or hearing is the second method of observation. You miss out on a lot of interesting happenings if you don't open your observational ears. So imagine opening your window in the spring morning. What do you hear? Birdsong, maybe? Spend some time learning the birds around you. There's an app that works pretty well that I use a lot. It's called Merlin, and it's by the Cornell Ornithological Department. It's by the Cornell Ornithological Lab. So you just open the app and it will show you in real time what birds it hears around you. So that app has helped me a lot when trying to learn and recognize birds by their voices. Imagine walking in the woods. If you open your observational ears, what might you hear? More birds or bugs? What about running water or frogs? Some things you may hear can signify greater biodiversity elsewhere. Maybe there's a creek nearby or a pond. If you open up your observational ears, it opens more opportunity for observing a greater range of biodiversity. You can find a whole range of different specimens in the creek ecosystem versus the pond ecosystem versus the forest ecosystem. In fact, you can find an entire ecosystem in a rain puddle. There's going to be creatures in or around water that you might not find elsewhere, or plants that only grow within the watershed that can't grow deeper in the forest. If we know how to open our observational eyes and ears, we can find wonder, novelty, insight, and new aspects of even the most mundane, commonplace events that fill our day. Nature journaling is a mindful practice, and it forces you to pay attention to the things surrounding you. With practice, you'll begin noticing things that you previously didn't, because when you set the intention to notice things, you're more likely to see them. Suddenly, things that never would have caught your eye before will stand out. Make those observations and record them. And by doing so, you could be making the very last written record of a species or an event. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, maybe one of the reasons that you haven't started a nature journal is because you're too scared. Maybe you're scared of making mistakes, or scared because you feel like you don't know enough. But I find it personally really, really important to make mistakes in my nature journal. So if you misidentify something, you can always correct yourself. What I do is I just add my correction in my writing. So if I hear a woodpecker drumming, and at the time I think it's a red-bellied woodpecker, and I've written it in my journal for the day, but I do more research, or I just go back and listen again and realize I've made a mistake in identifying it, I'll write something along the lines of, the woodpecker I heard on October 7th was a pileated woodpecker, not a red-bellied woodpecker, as previously thought. And if you find something and you're unsure of an identification, you can write that too. On many occasions I've written, this specimen appears to be some sort of, so maybe the yellow flower I found appears to be some sort of tick seed. Or maybe I'll write, I found a yellow flower on my walk, but couldn't get a positive identification. I'm gonna go later and try again. And then whenever I have the chance to go back, if I get a positive identification, I'll write that on that day. Or you could even write notes at the bottom of your page. Put a little asterisk in where you made your mistake, and then add in a footnote. I think making mistakes in nature journaling is really important. I think making mistakes in identification is really important because you're making a written record of your learning. So you can look back and say, I didn't know what this species of insect was, but on this particular day I positively identified it for the first time. That's something you're going to want to look back on and something that you want to be proud of. There's no person on this earth, no matter how long they've been nature journaling, who knows everything. Learning is part of journaling, it's part of nature appreciation, and it's just really cool to look back and see all of your progress. I do want to encourage you to go outside in your nature journaling practice as much as possible. So whatever that looks like to you personally, whether you have 15 minutes at the end of your workday or you have a couple of hours of free time, any amount matters and it adds up over time. A thought I have every now and then is that people don't tend to think about what's happening outside when they're not experiencing it. So when you're living your life, you're not generally thinking, what are the grasshoppers doing out there, or what kind of day are the birds having? But there are so many times when I've just walked outside and immediately observed something that I feel is special enough to write in my nature journal. So it might help to remember that nature is happening, and it's happening right now at all times all around you. There's always interesting things going on out there. And if you don't take a moment to just go outside and look around you, you're not going to experience those things. You don't have to get out to nature journal, but it certainly adds variety to your entries. It encourages you to unplug for a while and get off your devices. And it's nice to just sit and feel and be in nature. So my next tip is to paint from life as much as possible. This is something that I'm also fairly new at, but I've found it to be so much more informative than painting from a reference. It's completely different to paint from a 3D object than it is to paint from a two-dimensional object. You can see it from different angles, you can touch it, feel it, you can smell it. It can help you focus on recording what you see as opposed to recording what you think you know. A huge part of nature journaling is creating a relationship with your subjects and specimens. Having a relationship with the things you're passionate about, that you're choosing to put in your journal, is only going to increase your passion. Please keep in mind that nature journaling is about the process and the experience of doing it, not so much about the end product. So that's definitely a tip that I could keep in mind more frequently. That's all I have for now. I don't know how long this video is going to be. Like I said, this is just everything I know about nature journaling that I could remember when writing my notes. So maybe I'll have a part 2 in the future. So thank you for watching. If this is my first video you've seen, please feel free to look at my other content or say hello. I appreciate every single person watching this video. I hope you all have a good day and enjoy your time nature journaling. Whether you're just beginning or you're wanting to connect deeper with your already existing nature journaling practice. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.